Mr. Melillo, you have 5 minutes and go ahead, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I'd like to direct my questions to Minister Vandal. And Minister, you mentioned in your remarks that the estimates show your government's commitment to economic development, and the proposed Alberta to Alaska rail line is something that we know will be able to generate billions of dollars in economic activity across northern Canada. And the project has recently received a presidential border crossing permit from the United States. I'm wondering if you can confirm whether your government is supportive of the project or if the Prime Minister intends to block it in a similar way that he has with other similar development projects.
Well, I can tell you that that is something that is extremely intriguing, and I do know that our government has yet to see an actual proposal from anyone on this potentially very exciting project. We know that connectivity, whether it's physical or virtual, is something that we need more of in the north. We've recently launched Canada's largest ever infrastructure program to help develop projects
Minister.
in the north. When we get an actual proposal, we'll actually do the review of it.
Thank you.
Is a short answer.
Yeah, and I would like to comment on the broadband as well. And I realize it is not exclusively in your file, but definitely something that's very important to many people across the north. And the government is currently planning to connect all communities across Canada by 2030. And I believe that for many in the north, I'm sure, Minister, you'd agree that that timeline is still too long. And the official opposition, we actually brought forward a plan of our own to help connect Canadians. It's a plan that includes changes to spectrum auctions, incentives for rural infrastructure, new rules to prevent big companies from profiting off of consumers. And we believe that these suggestions could help accelerate that timeline. And they're public, they're out there. So I guess my question, Minister, would be if you have any thoughts on why the government hasn't taken some of those great suggestions.
Well, I think our government's very clear that we think suggestions are useful, but we need some actual dollars to come forward to work with territorial governments, to work with private companies, to work with satellite companies. And that's why last week the Prime Minister announced $750 million on top of the $1 billion announced in the previous budget to connect Canadians to high-speed internet across Canada. We want to grow businesses. We want to create jobs. We also, Prime Minister recently announced an agreement of $600 million with Canadian satellite company Telsat to improve connectivity and expand high-speed internet coverage to the far north, to rural areas, to remote regions across Canada.
Thank you, Minister.
Through low Earth orbit satellite capacity.
Thank you. I'd also like to ask a bit about housing as well. And Minister, again, we've had some conversations about housing, and you know there is a housing crisis across the north, to put it frankly. And with the recent rapid housing initiative that was announced, I know there were some people in my riding that were I don't know if concerned is the right word, but they had some questions about why there was certain urban centers that were prioritized through the first stream of funding. And I believe that I'm in some agreement with my constituents that a specific northern stream of funding to ensure that northern communities can have access to a lot of this funds and aren't in any way left behind would be beneficial. Could you speak to why the government didn't seem to consider that?
1 minute.
Well, I can tell you that improving housing outcomes is an absolute priority for our government. And I can tell you in all of my travels and phone calls and Zoom calls, both pre-pandemic and during the pandemic, housing comes up the most often. And we realize it's even more important during a pandemic. Our government, I know, has a 10-year housing agreement with the government of Nunavut. In fact, we have 10-year housing agreements with the territorial governments in Northwest Territory and the Yukon, which will invest close to $800 million in those three territories. As well, we have a 10-year, $400 million housing agreement with Inuit land claim organizations. that are going to invest close to $400 million in Inuit housing. We feel we're going in the right direction, but you're absolutely right. The gaps are so large. There's so much work to do that we need to continue what we're doing for many, many years.
Thanks very much.